Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. I'd like to talk about in today's session about parents. A session prior, I made reference to familial history and familial matters, and I ended the session by reminding you that there's something special about you, that you were wonderfully and fearfully made, and that you were special. You have a purpose. The purpose needs to be discovered, and absent the discovery, you will always live your life based on the expectations of others. Most of the time, those expectations will come from parents. A lot of the depression I see, both in the young and in older people, I would say, in my opinion, a significant amount of them, despite being linked to mental health and mental issues and psychological issues, at the root cause, the foundation of all of their suffering is parents. They make us and they break us. Some are great and some are awful. And there is no shame in recognizing which is which. As a matter of fact, I actually think that for those who had very poor or bad parents, you owe more honor to them than those who had good parents. Now, this is perhaps a paradox in itself. Respect is earned. Honor, on the other hand, is recognizing what makes a person unique and different. So we give a reward to other people by virtue of their uniqueness. For example, we honor the Prime Minister of Great Britain or the United Kingdom, Sir Keir Starmer. Why? Because he is the Prime Minister and he is in a position of authority. So we show honor to the position and the person occupying the position. We show honor to our fathers and our mothers by virtue of their unique position in relation to who you are. They were the vessel through which you came into the world, and that puts them in a position of honor. So when you have a father or a mother that is horrible, that is not kind, that is, in many ways, you might even use the word wicked, it's very natural to say, I dislike my parents so much, and I've cut all communications with them because they are not good people, and I withhold my honor. Now, if you subscribe to the worldview that I do, or the philosophical position grounded in Christian ethics, one of the things you find is that there are commandments that are given. One of the commandments is to honor your father and your mother, and there is a promise guaranteed with that command, which is your days will be long and fruitful in this land. And so for many people, a lot of the suffering with regards to depression can be traced back to a failure to honor, but it's also traced back to parenting. You have gone from being a child to being an adult. And now you can look back and introspect and realize that there were things that were done to you that were not right. And therefore you withhold honor. Now, recognizing that it is a commandment, though superseded by one, which is to love, the withholding of love means that the river of life and energy and flow stops short of your life. If you were to look at the maps of the universe, or the world rather, you see areas of land and you see areas of bodies of water. Some of the water flows, and because there is flow, there is energy, there is life, and there is movement. There's order, there's chaos, and there is movement. And in other areas, you see a stagnation where the water doesn't flow. Rivers flow into lakes, that flow into other areas, that flow into seas, and flow into oceans, and the likes. But there are certain bodies of water that are stuck. Ponds, sometimes even seas. And what you find is over time, because there is no flow, it stagnates. And suddenly what is supposed to be pure and beautiful, which is water, becomes destructive. By stopping honor, to whom it is due, irrespective of how you think or feel about the person, you're stopping the flow into your life. And therefore, you're inviting suffering. I think personally that most people who suffer from depression, and generally in life, were destroyed by their parents. I also believe and think that most people who do not suffer with depression were liberated and celebrated and supported by their parents. Parents matter. We don't get to choose them. They make us and we accept them. However, there is a role that having honor plays in disconnecting you from a wrong parent or wrong circumstance by virtue of your attitude. You can be a great father. I said this yesterday to a loved one. You can be a great father, like King Solomon, and have a despicable son like Absalom. I mean, dishonoring son. And you can be a wonderful son, a kind son, a compassionate son, a forgiving son, like Jonathan, and have an awful father like King Saul. We don't worry too much about the roots from where you come, because your source is not the father or the mother that birthed you, but the Father from above, the Father from on high. And by on high, we're not looking towards the sky. We're just simply saying we're looking towards the imagination. We're looking towards that which is above all things. And so for most people, the suffering of depression and the suffering of life is by virtue of the refusal to recognize that the vessel from whence you came is not the source. It's not your source. It just happens to have been a vehicle through which you came into the world. But some people believe that their fathers and their mothers are the end of the line. And if that is your belief, and if you also accept that things were done to you poorly, there's a lack of forgiveness that is extended. And even sometimes when it's forgiven, there's still that resentment, there's still that anger, there is still that negative energy. And unfortunately, I'll go back. Decisions made in ignorance will birth worry and doubt. Negative emotions will always reproduce according to their kind. By their fruits you will know them, and a fruit never falls far from its tree, except it's kicked, or the wind blows it. In any case, you have to accept and understand that there are certain things in life that cannot be changed. You can't change the parents through which you came. But you can change the life you have by decisions you make. And for parents, despite being flawed vessels, we all are. Anybody who thinks they will be fabulous parents is, I'll quote the words of Lord Cromwell. He says, "By the bowels of Christ, I beseech you, think you might be mistaken." Now, the point is that we are all flawed and we will fall short. The best we can do is hope that whenever we are given the opportunity to be fathers or mothers, or given the opportunity to be guardians or supporters, or even role models, that we don't fall short too much. Because there are eyes, and there are little eyes that look towards us for life, for survival, for direction, for support, for guidance, for structure, for boundaries, etc. And every decision we make paints, as part of this tapestry of their life, paints colors that in some distant future would be beautiful or would be very ugly. In any case, I would say to you in today's session, if you're struggling with depression, I want to encourage you to start from something. Go back to family. Go back to your parents. Now, it doesn't mean go back to them physically, because some of them may no longer be here. You may not have a good relationship with them, or you may. I'm saying go back to family as the starting point for your healing. Often when I find people suffering in life, I can trace this to dishonor. They're dishonoring something, someone in their life. Now, you might disagree with our Prime Minister, but he is our Prime Minister. So you must honor the position. You might disagree with your father or your mother, but he and she are your parents. You have to show honor. It does not mean you should remain in a place of dishonor. So people can be dishonoring to you, and how they react to you shows their character, but how you respond definitely shows yours. And so one of the great things to keep in mind is honor is something that has to be given. The withholding of honor starts the process of creating this sense of negative deadness in your spirit. And that starts to birth worry and doubt, which will manifest itself in some form of fear. And fear will express itself through the body as anxiety, and anxiety would always lead to a state of you being not at rest, unhappy, and finally depression. And if it continues, disease and decay. You have to give honor, always. You don't withhold honor because it's a commandment. It's something that is due to other people. And even the more people dishonor you, and the more people are dishonoring of you, and the more people have harmed you and done bad to you, there is an honor that is still expected of you towards them. And I said, the more people dishonor you, and that the more horrible your father might be, the more honor you should show. Because what you're effectively saying is, despite your flaws, I recognize those flaws and I elevate my honor, because despite you being evil and wrong and bad, you're still my father. And I effectively honor that position, that vessel that I came through. Now let me shift gears. Having discussed honor. Now keep that in mind. I can look at your life and I can pay attention to those who you honor. And I can determine whether you would have a life void of depression or a life filled with depression. We mistake honor with respect, and we conflate honor with love. You can love a parent, you can love a mother or father, but be dishonoring of them. You can also honor a father or mother, but not love them. And I'm saying, if you're going to choose, I would choose the latter. Honor is more superior than love. You cannot love someone except you honor them, but you can honor someone and still choose not to love the person. You can love someone and not honor them, but you cannot honor someone or rather you can honor someone and choose not to love them. You can disconnect with love, but you can still show honor. So the first part of today's session is, keep in mind, your parents must be honored. Now the second part is, yes, they may have wronged you. They may have done wrong things. They may have harmed you. They may have withheld love, reminded you of all of your flaws. They may have been imperfect. They may have been even evil. All of that granted. Stay in honor, but disconnect with love. Keep them at a distance. There are certain people who we should not see regularly. I am aware of some people who, they brace themselves when they're going to see a loved one, a parent, a family member, etc. Why? Because it's an emotional drain. And the thought process before they meet said family members is almost depressing. And the aftermath of said encounter and the period of suffering is equally depressing. No problem. Let's assume that that's you and that is your situation. You have to learn how to disconnect. Walk away from love in all of its shades and in all of its glory, when said love is coming from a place or parents or family where it causes you more harm than good. Choose a new family. Choose a new mother, choose a new father, or better still, call it godmother or godfather. Someone who actually cares about you and loves you and thinks and wants good reports of you. And start forming a new family, just like you choose your friends. And stop your suffering. Your suffering is in vain. It wouldn't change people. The Venn diagram that I've used in prior sessions is an interesting one. On one side of the circle, you have things that matter. And then on the other side, you have things that you can control. You bring them together and there's an intersection. And all your life should be focused on the things that matter and things that you can control. You show honor as regularly as you can, but you can disconnect emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically from that place. Most depression is primarily because your parents have messed you up. They gave you too much love, and they didn't build you with the emotional resilience that life doesn't owe you any understanding. The life is not this cushy environment in the home. I actually think that more harm is done by people who had parents that overloved them and gave them too much love than is done by people whose fathers and mothers did not give them any love. Now that's hard to comprehend. But this idea of solipsism and hedonism and the me, where the universe revolves around you, is primarily why young people are suffering. We've told them that it's all about them. And the answer is it isn't. Life is not about you. Life is not even about the next person. Life just is. And whenever they go into the world and as they start to mature and they see things that are different to experiences that they felt and saw and lived, because they don't have and they were not prepared for that future, the struggle can be so enormous that the psychological toll is so huge that people start to break down mentally, physically, spiritually. Why? Father and mother did not teach you how to fish. They just simply gave you fish. And they overindulged you with a particular type of fish that suddenly you think that whenever you then see chicken or when you're fed beef, that is a crisis. Your family, your mother, your father, sometimes even your siblings, or whoever your parents were, they fucked you up. But here's the big but, and perhaps a great place to end today's session. Their fucking up is not in perpetuity. You get to choose. You pick up a piece of paper and you can write a new script. What people do not understand is sometimes the life you're leading and the life you have is a script written by another person, knowingly or unknowingly. Like a sponge as a young child, you're absorbing all of everything around you, and you're modeling parents, and you're listening and you're holding onto their words because you haven't reached the age of reason. And once you get to the age of reason, it's already part of your self-identity and self-concept and your self-image that you don't even bother to question as to whether this is who you want to be. Sometimes the damage is so strong and the impact is so strong that for most people they can't change. The life they're leading is being animated by words, deeds, actions, behaviors, mannerisms of their fathers and mothers or parents. And all I'm saying is, in this instance, is that you have to recognize that you're being animated by an idea, ideals, or a person. And the time has to come where you cut all the strings and say, I'm going to be free. If I want to be free, I'm going to have to choose my pathway. That process does not begin by studying other people. It doesn't even begin by looking back at your past. Forget the past. Just a forgetfulness has to be so strong that you just simply say, I don't care about the past. I'm only looking towards the future. I have seen my future, and I'm going to live in that future. And you move confidently in the direction of your dream. Now, I'll leave you with the end of today's session, with a quote by Henry David Thoreau. And he said, if a person will advance in the direction of their dreams and endeavor to live the life that they have imagined, that they will meet with success, unexpected, in uncommon hours. Someday, you will look up and realize that you've done it. You're no longer depressed. You're no longer anxious. You're no longer worried. You're no longer troubled. You're not fearful. But that requires a dream, a picture of the future, an obsessive focus on that future, a denial of the past. I hope today's session has been useful.